All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott from Jeff Teaches Programming. It's been a while since I've been on. Let's see, it's been, probably 4 or 5 days, if not more, 6 days ago. And when I did this last time, I've been going over this third iteration of what I'm working on. And I changed this, I changed that, I changed boatloads of stuff. And I think that after a while, I made it worse and not better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to close everything that's open. Just save everything. That's the biggest problem. I can't take a look at either one of these forms. And like I said, I've made just a boatload of changes. So what I'm going to do is this, because the problem is in PayrollE-Core03. All right. So I'm going to come in here where I've got this pay. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm tired of it, to be honest with you. But I'm going to take the one that worked, the PayrollE-Core02, and I'm going to copy it and paste it. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to make it 03b, like that. Then I'm going to open this up and I'm going to change the CS proj file. I'm going to rename that. And I'm going to rename it to 03b, like that. Now I probably should be changing these two, but I'm not going to. Just forget it. I'm more concerned with getting this to work. Number one, converting this to an ASP.NET project. Number two, that's what I want to do. All right, that's what I'm going to be looking to do right now. All right, so I'm going to bring that project in. So in here, I'm just going to leave this 03 there. So I'm going to right mouse click on here and do an add. And I want to add an existing project. Again, it'll be from EFCore. And it's going to be PayrollE-Core03b.proj. There it is. Now, I don't even have any idea about this, but I'm going to set that as my startup project, and I'm going to try to run it. I'm not going to look at anything. I just want to see if literally if it runs right now, if I can, okay, and I want to see if I can see the two forms. Okay, there's one form, and there's the other form. Okay, that looks okay. All right, that's fine. So the other thing I want to see if I can do is to go into my forms folder. Can I bring this one up and have it show? There it is. And here's the other one. Good. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I can already see there's, I didn't do a lot of updating on this. So I'm going to say startup form for version 03b. All right, so that's done. I always seem to come in here and change the color, and it just hit me. I'm just going to make this purple. I don't know if that's next. I don't care anymore. There. So I'm going to make that purple, and I'm going to make this the darker purple. Just like that. All right, so it now says 3B. If I go back to the other form here, I want this also on my text to say version 03B, like that. Okay, good. Do the same kind of thing here in that I'm going to highlight all these. I'm going to make them a darker purple. I'm going to highlight the background here, and I'm going to make it the lighter purple. Now, I should not have done anything that's going to affect the way this program runs, but I'm going to run it again anyway. Okay, so you see it is now purple. Okay, fine. That's all fine. That's all dandy. Okay, everything's looking good. All right. So I'm just going to basically, for lack of better words, kind of, start over again. All right. And if you say, I don't understand, then please just watch a little bit, okay? Let's stop the run. Let's go in here. Let's start with app config. And let's make this payroll database ASP03b, like that. Whoa, and I didn't make that a 0, but I will now. 03b. All right. Because again, I'm going to use that when I, hopefully at least, when I have an ASP version of this working. So I've got that done. Let's go into our data here and let's look at our context file. And I might change this around a lot. I might not change it around much at all. I don't really care right now. But again, this is going to be payroll database ASP03b. Okay, so file, save all. So those right now are done. Now I want to start by going through my models and taking a look at what's in there. All right. So I'm going to start with my employee class. Oops, in here, which I called employee DB abstract, which is fine. All right, ID gets set, first name gets set. You know, I could, I'm not doing this, but I could just as easily have set this equal to double quote, double quote. Would have worked the same way. I'll leave it at string.empty. It's, oops. There. We'll just leave it like that. Usually that's a more common way that it's seen. All right. And I'm not going to use this employee type. All right. We talked about this before. What I'm going to do, for lack of better words, is I'm going to force each different employee type to calculate. How about create / calculate its own gross pay? And what do I mean by that? I mean that, again, what we're going to have for an hourly employee is either their gross pay will be hours worked times hourly rate, if it's straight time, meaning it's less than or equal to 40 hours, or it'll be 40 hours of straight time, so 40 hours times their hourly rate, plus whatever they made over 40 hours or whatever they worked over 40 hours times their hourly rate times 1.5. So to do that, I'm going to make this public. I'm going to make it abstract. Decimal, because it'll have to return a decimal. That'll be the gross pay. We'll just call it gross pay. All right. And it'll be a get. Whoopsie. Hello. I want that gross pay. So public, abstract, decimal, gross pay. And all we wanted here, we don't want to set, just a get. All right. We will be setting this, for lack of better words, on our own. All right, so that's the first one. So that one's now done. So file, save all. I'm just going to keep the context factory. I'm going to close for now. The context I'm going to close for now. The app config I'm going to close for now. All right, so we've got that one. Let's go to hourly. It doesn't matter the order in which we do these. All right, we've got public class, hourly employees. Let's make this just an hourly employee, like that. And don't worry if we're getting errors. We're going to work on it just a bit. So that'll be employee also. All right. And that, in fact, let's go this far. Let's go back to here where we just were, and let's rename this. Because rather than calling it employee DB abstract, let's just call it employee. All right. That's fine. Because that's what it is. It's signifying an employee. Now, for hourly employee, we're going to say that already changed that. All right. So we have here public class hourly employee, and it says it does not implement our gross pay because we hadn't put it in yet. All right. We don't need this type anymore. Okay. But we're going to come in here and we're going to say public decimal. We don't need this gross pay in here anymore either. We're going to say public decimal. In fact, it's going to be public override decimal gross pay. All right. And I think what I want to do is I want to go back to employee here, and I want to change this from public abstract decimal gross pay to, I'm going to call it calculate gross pay. Maybe this will be wrong. I'm not sure. Most of this I'm doing off the top of my head now. Calculate gross pay. I don't want to do it like that. All right, it's not liking what we're doing here. I wonder if I can just do this. I don't want to put a get in there. Like that. All right, we'll see whether or not this works. All right. So it's calculate gross pay. Now we've got this public override decimal, calculate gross pay. All right. And what we want in here is let's also come in, and it should not matter if we do this. I'm going to try at least. I'm going to put in public const. We did this before, so non-OT, max non-OT. We're going to set that equal to, it's got to be a type, decimal, max non-OT. We're going to set that equal to 40.00M. All right, we're also going to say public const decimal over rate, and that's our overtime rate, and that's going to be equal to 1.50M. Just so these line up, not that it matters one way or the other, but there we go. So if hours worked is less than or equal to max non-OT, that means they have no overtime coming. So this will be gross pay. We have to create a variable called gross pay. So decimal gross pay. Set that equal to 0M. All right, and we're going to say here gross pay equals hours worked times hourly rate. Okay, that's just standard. Else gross pay is equal to, and this is where we'll have to do our overtime. All right, so this will be straight time, i.e. no overtime worked. And this will be overtime worked. Okay, so this will be max non-OT times hourly rate, but then we have to add to that hours worked minus max non-OT. All right, I'm going to put in another parenthesis here. All right, that times hourly rate times over rate. All right. And then finally, I'm going to return gross pay. Now, hopefully that makes sense to everybody watching this. Simply, again, what we're saying here, I'm going to make this a little bigger in a second, is in this calculate gross pay, okay, if the hours that you worked were less than or equal to 40, which is this, all right, we just set it up here. If it's less than or equal to 40, it's straight time. There was no overtime. So gross pay is hours worked times hourly rate. Otherwise, gross pay is 40 times their hourly rate. So that's their straight time plus whatever they work. So imagine they work 50 hours. In fact, imagine they work 40 hours. That's less than or equal to 40. So it'll be 40 times whatever the rate is. Let's say it's $10 an hour. It'll be 400. Let's say they work 50 hours. Then it'll be 40 times 10, assuming they still have that hourly rate of 10, so that's 400, plus the hours worked, which is 50, minus 40, which is 10 times 1.5. So that'll be 150, so their gross pay will be $550. They'll have $50 worth of overtime pay. All right, so that's it for hourly employee. So file, save all. Let's go on to our next one, which is our commission employee. All right, we're going to make this commission employee because, again, it is an employee. All right, and we're going to come in here. Again, we're going to get rid of this. We'll get rid of all this. And just like we did previously, we'll say public override decimal calculate gross pay. All right. So all we have to do in here is to say, we don't even need to create a gross pay. We can just say return commission percentage times sales amount. That's it. And notice we have no errors in here. All right. Now remember, our employee is handling the first name, the last name, and the ID. And it's saying that anybody who is going to inherit from employee must create their own calculate gross pay. So hourly, which had what? Hourly had its own hours worked and hourly rate. And then we calculated our gross pay based on that. All right. Secondly, we've now had our commission employee, which has a commission percentage and a sales amount, and we're calculating our gross pay based on that. I'm going to grab this. Why, you'll see in a minute. So let's just do a file, save all. Let's come into our pieceworker employee. And again, we're going to make that singular, and that's singular. In fact, we don't even need that. I'm going to copy this, just what we had before. But now what it is pieces made times price per piece. Okay, so again, now for our pieceworker employee who has a pieces made and a price per piece, okay, that'll figure that out. All right, and finally, the last one, which is the simplest, is our salaried employee. All right, so again, we're going to make that singular. And again, we don't need any of this. I'm going to bring this in, and all I'm going to say is, for calculate gross pay, I'm going to say return salary. That's it. So now we have come in, whoops, and we have rewritten, basically, we now have our hourly employee. We have we have our employee, which is our standard, that's an abstract, our hourly employee, our pieceworker employee, our commission employee, and now we just did our salaried employee. So File, Save All. So we now should have everything in our models folder complete. All right, should be all okay. So I'm going to close all this. Hopefully you can tell too, I'm being very, almost unbelievably deliberate here. All right. All right. So we've now done, we've now created what? We've gone back and we've created our employee. We've done our hourly employee, our salaried employee, our commission employee, and our piece worker employee. Those are all done. All right. Let's take a look at our DB context class that's in here. Because to my knowledge, it's pretty darn big. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get rid of it. Now, one thing I should do here, let me go back to the files I just had because I want to double check something here. So under models, yeah, this should be B. All right. And don't worry, well, let's see, it says employee could not be found. Well, that's because we have to make a B in here. All right. And a B in here. And a B in here. Now, this isn't really the way typically you would do this. I should be doing the rename command, but it should work just fine like this as well. All right, so I'm going to do a file, save all. Why? Just because I'm trying to be consistent here and make sure I don't forget anything as we're going on in here. No errors, no errors, no errors. I'm looking for red on the side here, not seeing anything. No errors. So let's look at our DB context here. So first of all, again, this will now have to be 3B, okay, as will this. All right. And when we go in here, we just got a lot of junk. All right. And I'm just going to get rid of all of it. I'm going to leave the comment here. And that bothered me from before because it says represents instead of represents, which now is correct. All right. So we've got our payroll class DB context. All right, and I'm going to take everything that's inside of here and I'm going to get rid of it. Everything. I think I can rewrite it and make it much, hopefully, much better. All right. So what do I need to put in here? Well, hopefully not a whole heck of a lot. I've got my public class DB context, which inherits from, or payroll DB context, which inherits from DB context. All right, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to replace all that junk I had before with just one DB set, employee, and we'll just call it employees with a get set. Now that helped a lot of stuff. All right. Now, the other thing, we still need an on-model creating. So public override void on model, on model creating. Surprised, I thought it would have caught that already, but it did not. So let's keep going here. Okay, on model creating, and this will be model builder, which I typically just call builder. All right. All right. So now I'm going to say builder, public override void on model creating, model builder builder. Okay, it says here. Okay, well, let's see if when we put all this in, if it fixes it. So I'm going to be using here this table per hierarchy. So I want to say builder dot entity, and that entity will be employee. All right, dot has discriminator, which will be a string, which will be known as the employee type. All right. It'll dot has value. And I have to say now, so if it's an hourly employee, it'll have a value of hourly. Should make sense. If it's a piece worker employee, it'll have a value of piece. If it is a commission employee, it'll have a value of commission. And finally, if it is a salaried employee, and I know I'm getting way up there in time, it will have a value of salaried. Stop that while the clock is going. Turn that back on. Sorry, I started talking before I turned it back on. All right, what was wrong here? I didn't have parentheses here, and I spelled discriminator wrong. So we're going to be passing in an employee type of either hourly, piece, commission, or salaried. All right. Now it doesn't like something on here. Trying to figure out what that is. It's probably missing in here. Let's see, override this method. Yeah. Well, it's explicitly said. Yeah. Follow now, run. See, modeling types and relationships for more. Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get an error here, and that's okay. So I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to try to run this. Let's make sure that it is our startup project, and let's run it. See if we can get some more information on this error. Space models did not exist. Are you missing an assembly reference? It's in PayrollE-Lib. No, that's not. They're all in here. Okay, all of these say that they could not be found. So let's, well, one thing we didn't do, did we, in here? No, we did change that. This does not exist. Are you missing an assembly reference? So let's see. So let's come into our project and let's go in, and this is our project. We want to add a project reference. We don't need BMI EFCore. We do need BMI library. We do need PayLib. We do need this. I don't know why we would need Pay EFCore 03. I don't know why we would need any of these. I don't even think we need the BMI library, to be honest with you. I think we just need these two. PayrollE-Lib. But we can put in here Pay EFCore 3. I don't know if we need that or not, but there. Nope, we're still getting that error. Models does not exist. Oh, there, now it went away. And when you look here, we've got a bunch of, not errors, but we've got a bunch of warnings. All right, we'll have to take a look at those. Now we're getting an error still here. All right, it says cannot change access modifiers when overriding protected internal. Because it shouldn't be public. This must be protected. There we go. Great. All right. So now that is fixed. We have cut down substantially the size. This is like 35 lines now. And let's get rid of a couple of these blank lines in here, at least one. And again, we don't probably need most of this stuff that's in here. All right. We've got our comments, but we've only got about 10 lines of code here. We are still going to be working off of employee, which will have a discriminator of employee type. And that when I say that, it's what we're going to have to pass in. All right. So again, if it's an hourly employee, we'll pass in hourly. If it's a piece worker employee, we'll pass in piece worker. If it's a commission employee, we'll pass in commission. If it's a salaried employee, we'll pass in salaried. All right. So we've got all of that done. All right. When I come back, I'm going to come in and talk to you about creating what's referred to as a service class. All right. And we'll get back and we'll get into that in the next lecture. I'm going to save this, but the one that was out there previously, I'm going to leave it out there, but I'm going to call this, just so you know, this will now be called CS or C# 162-PayrollE-EFCore 3b. I'll call it like 3b. I've been using ABC, which is kind of sucks, sorry, but 3b-1 or something like that. All right, so I'll be back with the next lecture shortly.